This is Oscar Bevis for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on the DAZN. Benn, Shalom. Joins me. Appreciate your time, my friend. How's life?
Well, it's busy, relentless, which is good. Obviously, landed back from Riyadh yesterday, so straight back into a big fight week at the Copper Box. All is good.
Yeah, we can just about see Stratford from the balcony over there where Adam Azim and O'Hara Davis will do battle. Is this a fight that's going under the radar a little bit? Because if you take what we've seen from Adam Azim so far and what we know of O'Hara Davis, it's a potential banger.
It's a big fight. I think, obviously, coming off the back of October 12th, for me, the best card that we've seen in a long time, particularly and with that main event, that's always going to take a huge priority, huge precedence. So there's been a lot of noise around that card, but for me, you've got Adam Azim in a huge fight, a huge step up. O'Hara Davis as well in a fight that he needs to win as well. Huge fight. McKinson against Mbenge is a great fight for the IBO world title. Jamie TKB against Franklin Ignatius, another great heavyweight fight. Dan Aziz and Louis Edmondson, which when we announced it just got a fantastic reaction. That light heavyweight division is really good at the moment in Britain, and then obviously Anthony Yard returns as well. So it's a big card. But as you said, all the talking points been about Saturday. Now we can finally focus on this Saturday in a huge main event.
We've still got a few things to focus on. I will say, though, TKV and Franklin Ignatius is an absolute blinder. Anyone who has met Franklin will know he's such a top bloke, and so is TKV. So looking forward to see them two do battle. I've got to start with Fraser Clarke. Just an update from your side on how he is health-wise.
Yeah, it was scary. I think it's one of those moments. I said before the night, I was really looking forward to that main event and watching it as a fan. And when things like that happen, for that split second, nothing else matters. And it was bad. It looked bad, and it's the heart in your mouth moment, especially when you know someone well. And their family and people around. It was. I think it put everything into context for me because we're all focused, and even for the fighters, we're all so focused on winning. We're all so focused on progressing our careers and getting caught up sometimes in the entertainment that is boxing. That you forget what really matters, and that was a tough moment for Fraser and the people around him. And we went straight off to the hospital, and it was bad. I think 2 or 3 separate breaks, and then but we had the scan, and his brain was okay. And at that point, especially with the way it went round, you're worrying about anything. Could be bleed on the brain, could be strokes. But it was good in the end. We had the scan. The doctors were unbelievable. We were thinking about going home and operating there, and then that would have just been an absolute madness. So managed to get a great doctor, great surgeon. I think Turkey Al Sheikh actually helped with that, and managed to get it sorted in pretty much overnight. And he's okay. Obviously, he's come back now. It's a lot to get over that. I think what it just shows, one punch in boxing can change the course of anything. And I think now mentally it's more, very disappointed in because he had a lot to give. And I think that's heavyweight boxing. You switch off for 1 second, and that's what can happen. And credit to Fabio, because it was an outstanding finish. It was calculated. It was world class. But I think for Fraser, got caught cold really, and then turned his back. Thought the ref might have stepped in at that point. I was thinking this is dangerous. When his back's turned, I think he got spun round. But it didn't end well. And but as I say, when those things happen, nothing else matters. And it was a stark reminder to all of us what really matters in life. And thankfully, he is safe. He is home. He's with his family, and he will come again. And he'll be more hungry than ever, and he'll learn from it. And yeah, congratulations to Fabio as well.
Yeah, it's not a nice question, but I know it's one that people will ask you, especially this week. Is there potential that Fraser Clarke hangs up the gloves?
No, I've spoken to him again today. Look, when something happens like that, it can alter the change how you think. It can alter anything, but definitely not. I think he knows he was caught cold. He'll probably look back on that and be gutted. He'd fancy himself in a fight, but in heavyweight boxing, particularly with someone like Fabio, you can't switch off, and he knew that from the first 12 rounds.
Just a quick one to finish up on that fight. Fabio Wardley, what sort of fighter do you think Britain have got in Fabio Wardley? Obviously, a lot is spoken about in terms of him being from the white collar scene. I think he had, people can correct me if I'm wrong, about 4 amateur fights. Obviously a big lump, punches hard. How far would you predict Fabio Wardley can go?
It's hard to know. I think
he just entered the Ring Magazine heavyweight rankings.
Yeah, I think it was the finish. Is that's a natural finisher, and there's not many fighters that can do that. And I think he said from the first fight he learned that maybe he rushed his work a bit, but it was clinical. And for any fighter that can do that, it means you can do that. You know, you can be a danger at any level, and he's a danger to anyone when you can punch like that and finish like that. And yeah, it was conclusive and it was early. And as I say, Fraser would be gutted to be caught like that after going 12 rounds, caught so cold. As I say, when his back got turned, that was a sticky moment that maybe, as I say, on another day, a referee jumps in. But I think Fabio can go very far if you can finish like that in the heavyweight division. He's athletic, he's mobile. He's very mobile for a big man. And yeah, it was a great night for him.
Yeah. On to Benn Whittaker. Sum up his week in Riyadh.
It was a difficult week. I think it didn't seem quite right from the start. But as soon as he got in the ring, I knew that wasn't the Benn Whittaker that we've seen and we watch and we see in the gym and we see in the ring. Just timing and this wasn't on, and he didn't seem at the races, and we knew. I could see that from the start, even though he won the first couple of rounds. And so he'll have to look at that. All this stuff around him faking an injury. I mean, I've seen all that. He's gone over the ropes. He's had a 13-stone guy land on him. He was out 9 months last year with a neck injury. So first thing I'm thinking is, Jesus, that is a bad fall. He's hit his ankle on the stairs, I think, or caught it on the stairs.
I was going to say, I was wondering if it was he hit it on the ring canvas, the stairs, or if his foot had planted whilst he was laying on the ring canvas.
And so when the fights got called off, when we've gone to the hospital, his ankle's like a balloon. He's got a problem with his neck that he's had before because of the way he's landed. And people are acting like it was a foregone conclusion. Benn could have easily gathered himself and won that fight fairly comfortably. We don't know. But to suggest that he faked an injury and suggest there were shouts from the corner to do that, I have to say that is way a big stretch of the truth. And as I say, I was in that hospital and he's absolutely devastated. And don't get me wrong, it was a performance that I've never seen from him. And take nothing away from Liam Cameron, but Benn was not himself. And I think anyone that's ever watched him can. And look, I've seen the pile on. He's one of the most recognisable sports people in the country now. But he's still a young man. And I appreciate everyone saying he gives a lot and he talks a lot and he's this and that, so he almost deserves it. He'll take it, and he's man enough to take it. But I think you see at this point, the people that have been waiting, the people that have been waiting on his downfall, that want to come out and want to jump on him straight away, and I think he'll remember that. And for me, this is a huge moment. You know, you talk about the greats in sport and you talk about moments in their career, and they all go through very, very difficult moments where a huge amount of people are doubting them. And I believe and I hope that this moment will be used in a really positive way to go, maybe I do need to check myself. Maybe I do need to work out what's gone wrong there in my camp with whatever I'm doing, with my team, whatever it is, and say, yes, we're having all this success outside of the ring, but it's because of your talent inside of the ring, and that's where you need to focus. And I think I think it will be a big call, and all these questioning his personality and his this and that. Let me tell you, he is out of all the fighters, the most family orientated, focused on his friends. The only thing that matters to him is making sure they're okay. And that can be a fault at times, because all the friends that have been with him are with him at the fights, and his family is all that matters, and he just wants to look after them. But he needs a world-class team around him as well. And so I'm hoping it's a huge moment in his career. He's got a lot to look at there, as to why the performance was where it was prior to what happened. But as I say, I think it's going to be a moment that I look back on, and I'm glad that happened, because, sometimes, as I say, you can be focusing on the wrong things, or different things can be going on, and you need this is what can happen in professional boxing, if you're not at the races and if you're not completely focused. And I feel for him right now, but as I say, he's man enough to deal with it, and he'll deal with it in due course.
One thing I will say is I think we can all appreciate that he didn't injure himself on purpose, right? He didn't do what he done with the intention of falling and hurting his neck, falling and hurting his ankle. But at a sticky point in the fight, do you feel like he created the scene? I guess he created the scene as a way out of the fight.
Not at all. I think he's backed up against the ropes, and the force has taken them both over the ropes. He's taken a 13-stone guy on top of him, and that's never going to end well. And the ropes seem to give way, and he's landed in a very awkward. It could have been a lot worse, the way he's gone over there. But yeah, I've seen all that stuff, and he's going to get a huge amount of critics, and there's people preying on his downfall because of the popularity, the followers, the flashiness, everything. And I get it. I do get it. But ultimately, this is a young man that loves to entertain, that's an extremely talented boxer, and has probably made mistakes in his preparation for this fight. He's not to then have this, to hold that against him to this point. He's had 9 professional fights. I appreciate, as I say, this is the pressures of professional sport. This is what comes with the spotlight. But I just want people to remember, this is a young man trying to make his career, and it's not going to be perfect.
Team Cameron were adamant that Benn was asked not once but twice whether he wanted the fight to continue, and both times he was very conclusive with his answer, no.
Yeah, and he knew that was it, and thankfully he did, because we went back and his ankle was blown up, and he's got an issue with his neck that he had last year, and he landed terribly, and so I don't know what people expect or people think when you know that you can't carry on as a boxer.
Do you think people expected him to give it a go in the 6th?
Possibly, but they don't know what injury he's sustained. They don't have a clue what we've been through for the past year around his neck. Like, there was a reason he was out for 9 months. So for him to flip over the ring, get landed on, I was concerned about his neck because of what we've been through. Then we get back to the hospital and his ankle is blown up. And so we clearly couldn't put weight on that ankle either. So I think, was it a performance that we weren't happy with? 100%. It was nothing like a Benn Whittaker I've ever seen. But did it end because of an injury and a freak accident? 100%. And
was Liam Cameron winning the fight?
I think it was a very close fight. I think many people that scoring the fight objectively have got Benn maybe 1 ahead, with Liam coming into the fight. And so I think there was still a lot of time for Benn to regain his composure. I think, yes, it wasn't a good performance, and it wasn't the performance that I'm used to, and it just wasn't Benn Whittaker in there, and anyone can see that. But yeah, all this stuff around him fabricating a fall and fabricating an injury is nonsense. And I think a lot of people have been preying on his downfall there.
Yeah. Do you think he looked down on Liam Cameron in the fight week? I heard Liam go on TalkSport and say, and I know what clothes you wear isn't relevant to the person you are, but he felt like that Benn was kind of dripped out in designer gear, and he looked down on Liam. Liam tried to give him a little nod on fight week, as if to say, like, we're going to do battle on Riyadh season. And Benn kind of dismissed him. I know his team were quite vocal.
Benn's in a fight. Benn is like that. Up until you fight him, you think he's an absolute arsehole. Ask every one of his opponents what he's been like since they fought him. Every single one. He gets in there, he shakes their hand, he knows their name, he talks to them. He usually boosts their profile massively. And that's the genuine guy in there. To judge a fighter of how they are in fight week, when they're about to go into battle and trying to get inside each other's heads, is beyond me. And so I don't think we can look into that.
Yeah. One more thing, the video circulating of Benn at the airport where we see the ankle injury, so his ankle strapped up, and then there's a cut to a smashed phone.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have been asked many a question about it. Is there anything you guys can say about that?
Just a moment of frustration. He's absolutely devastated, you know, at his performance, because he knows he wasn't right, and he has his own. We're gonna. There's reasons for that, and we'll look into that. But he's devastated because he's used to performing, he's used to getting it right. You know, he's used to being levels above on talent, and he when he got in the ring, he just wasn't himself, and there's huge frustration. And he's a young man that's been put into the spotlight from relatively, like, you know, you take it back 2 years ago. Yes, he was a silver medalist, but did he have 3 million followers? Did he have people all around the world knowing who he is? He's only had 9 fights. He's in the limelight. It's people will never be able to relate to what he is going through on this come up. The intensity, the scrutiny. Yes, he brings it on himself. Yes, he's a born entertainer. Yes, we wouldn't want it any other way. But it's still a lot for a young man. And he's gone back. He's not experienced this before. Very frustrated. I expect he's getting mobbed by different people and this and that, and he's lost it. But as usual, with Benn, he's looked after the person, and I know that he's getting them another phone, or has got them another phone, and is invited them to the show. So yeah, he's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a young man, and I think people need to remember that. I believe this will be a huge moment in his career.
Yeah. So he sorted him out a new phone. Has he sorted Liam Cameron a rematch? Because I know from speaking to Liam and team, that's what they want. Understandably, like you said, Benn is a name, one of the most recognisable boxing faces in this country. So despite the opportunities that might land on the plate of Liam Cameron, I think we can be dead certain that he'll want the rematch. So
listen, first off, we need to assess when Benn can actually get back in the ring.
Do you think it could be quite a long layoff then?
I don't know, because we took a long time when his neck, you know, as I said, he's fought 5 times in the past year. Prior to that, he had quite an extensive period out, and maybe one before it, and it was all to do with this. So fingers crossed, he'll be okay. We come through rehab and we can start again. There'll be changes to his team, I believe, and there'll be changes to his mindset and how it's going. And as I say, sometimes you need a reality check in life. We all do. We all think we're on top of the world 1 minute, and I certainly, understand that. And people in all sorts of careers, you're on top 1 minute and you come crashing back down the next. And those moments are what define you. Those moments are what you learn from. Not many people can relate to perhaps the intensity and the severity of the scrutiny that he's going through right now. But I know he will learn from this, and I know this will be the making of him. And we've seen it before, and we'll see it again. And fingers crossed, he'll be back soon.
Yeah. Jack Massey, Joe Opetaia, just too good. We're looking at someone who I guess can perhaps lay his claim as currently the best cruiserweight in the world. I know there's belts to be tied up, and at some point I can imagine through his excellency we'll have an undisputed champion. But Joe Opetaia is on that elite rung of fighters.
He is. It was such a good performance. It was impressive to see, actually. Jack Massey's so tough, always game. Thought he had some joy in the first few rounds. Didn't expect the first few rounds to go as well. I thought he was going to come into it later on. But phenomenal performance from Jai. And yeah, in the end, Jack took too much punishment. Had a very experienced corner team, very experienced trainer in Joe Gallagher, and I think they made the right call. But yeah, Jai's a phenomenal talent, and the way he dispatched of Jack Massey was impressive. And yeah, he's a great cruiserweight.
Yeah. some loose cruiserweight ends going to be tied up at Latino night. If Billum Smith comes through, Jai comes through, I'm sure that's a pretty easy sit down.
It's a great fight. It's one we can't look at yet. This is a huge fight. Chris Billum Smith against Zurdo
Do you call
Ramirez.
Chris favourite in that fight?
I believe so. I'm sure potentially the bookies might have him slight underdog. I'm not sure. I've not looked. They usually do.
I was going to say, it's not something he's not adverse to.
Yeah.
He quite likes being the underdog.
He does, and he's been climbing a mountain for a long time, and it just keeps getting to the next level, the next level, the next level. This is the fight that we wanted. This is the fight that we've been preparing for. Zurdo Ramirez, obviously previous a super middleweight, but looked every part of the cruiserweight when I was over there. He's a big guy, great fighter. I think when he fought Bivol, that was considered at that point almost a 50-50 fight. Didn't win that fight. Has come back, won a cruiserweight title very quickly against Gullamari. So it's going to be a great fight. It's an interesting fight. It'll be free to air, which is fantastic for boxing. To watch a unification title fight like that, free to air on UK time zone. It's a huge moment for Chris. But I expect him to put in another big performance and hopefully win another belt.
Yeah, he's a big old lump Zurdo. I met him at Virgil Ortiz, Michael McKinson, and I've been around a lot of fighters in
He's
my
huge,
short
isn't
time.
he?
He felt a little bit like a small heavyweight.
Yeah,
he's massive.
It's mental to think that he made super-middleweight. I was sat there, I actually thought that for once maybe Chris would be Chris is the natural cruiserweight, career cruiserweight. But he's a big guy, Zurdo, talented fighter, interesting fight. And looking forward to that on November 16th.
Yeah, bring it on. Next episode of Riyadh season. Chris Eubank Jr. done what he had to do against Camille. Zeramatta had him down several times. I guess kind of what you expected?
Yeah, definitely. I actually thought he looked really good. I mean, at times probably eager to cause damage early on. But through great combinations, got into it in the end. He started using his jab and it was clinical and it was a great performance. I think His Excellency told him at the start of the 7th round he wanted it ended, and Chris did absolutely everything he could to do that. It was
Jonathan Banks thinking that when you've got His Excellency on the side telling Chris to finish the fight, and you've got a legend, trained Gennady Golovkin, Vladimir Klitschko in the corner, and he's listening to this guy. I know he's writing the checks, but
yeah, no. To be fair, it was the first time Bax and Eubank were working together. They get on, but
he's a cool guy as well.
He's a cool guy. I think, to be honest, Chris felt like maybe he was disappointed, maybe not to get him out there earlier, but he wore him down. But yeah, His Excellency, wanted a knockout. He got a knockout. I know he loves Chris. I think Chris has promoted Riyadh season well all week, all promotion. He knows what he's doing. He loves that part of the world. He's actually very grateful to them for, he's been out a year. So to get that fight back was so important. And now we want to deliver the biggest of the fights available. And it was great to see him back in the ring. Great to see him with his new team. Great to see him happy. Great to see him fresh and ready to go. And there's some huge nights to come.
Yeah. So talking of the Conor Benn fight, I asked this to Callis Howland, who now obviously has no dog in the fight. How many times do you reckon them two have gone head to head? Considering we haven't actually got to a fight week, the fight isn't even signed unless it's something I don't know.
The first fight must have been...
It was 2 years ago.
Must have been a few.
On the Monday in Riyadh, so...
Yeah,
I mean, look, the fight is sold, right? Is the fight signed?
It's not signed because Conor Benn hasn't got a licence. The noises I'm hearing from the board is that he will soon. Not directly from the board, but you speak and you hear things in boxing. And I think perhaps they get a backdated ban that might end early next year, end of this year. I think it's the fight that Chris wants. I think it's the fight that Conor wants. Chris is still pent up, angry about everything that happened last time. And the damage that he took his body through and the pain that he went through and the loss of what went on, and it really stalled his career, and that then led into the Liam Smith loss. And it was another weight cut. And the whole thing is still something that lives with Chris. And I know that. And for Conor, he's obviously desperate for the fight and desperate to get back. But as you said, it's sold. It's a huge fight. It's a huge moment. Chris has got big options, and the Canelo fight is still top of the list. But if the Conor Benn fight becomes available early next year, then I believe that will be next.
Yeah. So it'll be you and Eddie dealing together with delivering that fight.
I guess so.
Eddie said to me, and maybe, well, I guess in jest, because not literally, but he said if Chris was to win, because this is what he said at the weigh-in, so the fight hadn't happened yet. If Chris was to beat Camille Zerameta, that he and Frank could deliver the fight back at the hotel afterwards.
Let's see.
How does that fight go, Chris and Conor?
Chris will win. Chris will win, and I think he'll win. And I think he'll win well. I think he's been waiting for this moment. As I say, I think the first time when they fought, I don't think Chris was motivated in the same way he is now. I don't think he had that animosity. I don't think he had that anger towards Conor Benn.
Do you think what happened in the build-up to the first fight, with us actually hitting fight week, being 3 days out from fight night, that anger means more to him than the family history, do you believe?
Yeah, 100%. It's personal now. I think at the start it was the family thing, but speaking to Chris and understanding what went on through his mind, through his own eyes during that fight week, and even in the weeks leading up to it, I think it's always going to be difficult for him to look back on that. And he obviously blames one person most for it. And that's a big, big motivator for him. And I think we're going to see a very determined, very vicious Chris Eubank Jr. if that fight happens.
Yeah. Yourself and Frank Warren, have you spoken since the weigh-in?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah. Can we get your take of what happened on stage? Because I believe you're yet to be asked by anyone.
Well, I think I did speak about it, but ultimately I stood with my fighter, and we had plenty of days leading up, whether it's a press conference, the first one, the middle, different events where we couldn't, and for whatever reason we were being blocked off and we were put on the side. And for this time we made sure, even our fighters were confused and asking us what was going on, why weren't we there? And it was something that is normal. It's unusual for fighters to, fighters are with their promoter and other fighters with their promoter. For me, it shouldn't even be about the promoters. I've said that before. But if other promoters are there and purposely stopping us be with our fighters, then I think on that occasion we agreed the day before that it would happen, and Queensbury told me absolutely stand in the middle, and then I get on stage and it was the usual, right, blocking off, and you can see the wink and you can see them whatever, and so for me it was like, no, I'll stand in the middle, and that was it, as we agreed. And obviously that didn't go down too well. What
was said between you and Frank? I know Frank has described it as a telling off.
Well, what I couldn't believe is that Eddie straight away tried to say that I pushed him. I'm so grateful in a way for these cameras now, because it gives you an insight.
I never thought I'd hear you say that.
Well, it gives you an insight into fucking someone's just calling me over. Gives you an insight, perhaps. Otherwise, everyone would think I pushed a 72-year-old man, or my arse fell out on the last one. Luckily, there's that there, and I think everyone can see what it is. And for me, it's petty, and it's someone's lost their rag, and there's a reason that they won't talk about it, and there's a reason why they're trying to deflect on, it's because of this, or it's because of that. No, it was because I stood with my fighters, and that was it. And yeah, it was a moment where he lost his temper, and no one, and I appreciate the media, the broadcasters, people in the industry don't want to get involved, don't want to ask, don't want to this. But I tell you what, if I'd done that and it was the other way around, everyone would be asking me, why did I push
Do you feel like sometimes
promoter?
The media favour Frank and Eddie to yourself?
Not favour, it's just business, isn't it? Accreditation. I've had so many messages from broadcasters, from people in different teams, from people. I appreciate I don't need cheerleaders. I've come in here, I'm a young man, I'm battling against the establishment in many ways. But I know that people won't speak out loud or won't speak on camera, even people close to it, when they can see what's going on, and obviously you see what's going on camera, the stuff goes on behind the scenes, they don't want to say it. At the end of the day, everyone's got their business, whether it's fighters, managers who need work, whether it's fighters that need work, whether it's media that needs work. But I think any individual standing away from it can see what's going on, and that's it.
Contractually, is there something that says you have to stand in the middle of your fighters during weigh-in photos?
It just got to the point where we didn't have a seat when we got to events. I didn't have anywhere. We don't even have.
So you're saying
it got to
the contract that everyone's talking about is your response to what you feel is like being phased out?
100%. And so it gets to the point where even the basic things of being able to get to an event and having accreditation and making sure you can get in and being with your fighters, we had to agree, and we agreed them. So I don't really see what the problem is at all. But yeah, we're just going to keep growing and keep doing what we can do.
I don't want to play Jeremy Kyle on this whole situation, but do you feel like I don't want to say the relationship could be fixed, but do you feel like you and Frank could sit down and just be like, look, there's fights to be made. You've both got stables where you can make very tiny matchups between them, and this could kind of get sorted out?
Yeah, look, I do believe that that's what happens in boxing ultimately. 1 minute you're at odds, next minute you're making a fight. That's how it goes. And
you've got to make Liam Cameron Benn Whittaker.
And exactly. And it doesn't really matter if we get on outside of boxing or we don't, or he thinks I'm a little shit that he needs to stamp out or teach a lesson to, or dress down, or whatever he wants to say. Ultimately, when the fights are there to be made, they should be able to be made. I hope they will be made, and they're being made at the moment.
Do you think people have been shutting the door on you though?
What do you expect, Oscar? It's a stupid question. This is an industry that's been run by the same people for decades. Then it's not the red carpet time. I understand what it is. Otherwise, everyone would do it. Everyone would try it. No, not many people have the resilience and the balls and the single-mindedness.
From their side. So in an interview I've done with Frank Smith, I've also heard that there's a reluctance from you to sit down with these promoters. Like I think Frank Smith mentioned a dinner with himself, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, Spencer Brown, a few other members of kind of the Riyadh season team, and that you were absent. So from their side, they are thinking that there's a reluctance from your side to get as involved as you should be.
I don't think so. I genuinely don't. I think we want to make fights. We'll sit down with anyone. We'll do that whenever. As I say, it's all smoke and mirrors. Anyone can see what's going on. You'd have to be blind. And what more can I say other than we'll keep trying to work with promoters. We'll keep trying to make the best fights. We are pretty reasonable people. But as I say, these moments have been caught on camera for everyone to see, and otherwise we wouldn't be talking about them. I wouldn't be bringing them up.
Yeah. Just one more from me, from the media side of things. Obviously, I've been doing this for quite a few years now. I've wrote a few titles about yourself, about Frank Warren, about Eddie Hearn. I just wonder how the promoters view it sometimes, because you only looked to yesterday. I done an interview with Callum Sowland, and the title was based around yourself, which it's going to be after what we saw on the stage at the weigh-in. I just wonder how promoters feel about titles and whether media are directing things directly at them, or whether it's just an acceptance of, look, promoters are slagging each other off a little bit. We're going to use it to title a video. I wonder.
I used to, especially like people around me, used to take it personally, because when you see the headline, you think, right, that is it. But look, how long is this interview? And I'm sure you'll find a line that's just completely directed at another promoter, and that will be that. And then people will use that. No one watches the interview. I mean, I've never very rarely would have sat through another promoter's interview.
I was going to say, do you watch competitors'
No,
interviews?
so you're only hearing clips and highlights and headlines, and so everyone's just responding. No, I don't believe anyone's
and again,
actually
from our side, we
there.
could argue that from a content perspective, people shouldn't be taking something being said for granted because you've seen it on a 60-second Instagram reel, when for this interview, for example, we've sat here for 35 minutes today.
100%, but this is the world we live in. It's all clickbait. It's all it is what it is.
It's not clickbait if it's been said, though.
It's not, but the way it is done, I mean, you know what it's like, Oscar. You're a 30-minute interview, you say 3 words, suddenly it looks like you find a thumbnail where I'm fuming, and suddenly it looks like something that it isn't. But it's part of the game, and to be honest, right now, obviously Saturday was a tough night. Don't get me wrong. But to be involved in these big fights, to be involved in these big nights, to have our fighters, we've got another huge night on Saturday night. It was never going to be smooth. It's always going to be bumpy. I knew that when I got my promoter's license at 23 years old and had to make about 45 applications for it, use someone else's name at the start, find ways to get a venue because I couldn't get a venue, find ways to get on TV because there's no way anyone was going to put me on TV. You know, this is like the tip of the iceberg of obstacles to get into boxing promotions. Believe me.
So you are enjoying it then?
This is
People might look at the way that and the week in Riyadh is probably not the best example because for your fighters a lot didn't go their way. But people might look and be like, "Oh, does Ben Shalom walk away from that week and think like, fuck, what am I doing?"
No, I think if you've not walked in. I can see why, if you've not walked in my shoes, how it can look. Because even my missus says to me, "Oh, I'd hate to do that." She hears me on the phone late at night, arguing, trying to get contracts done. Someone's injured, something's come out in the press. Someone said this, someone said that. It's car crash. But I think when you've started a business, you've been through so much. By the time you get to this level, this is a lot easier, really, in many ways. And I think you have to enjoy it because I'm getting to watch World Championship boxing and deal with fighters that are elite talents. Yes, it's up and down. Yes, boxing's not predictable. Yes, anything can happen. Yes, you've got old promoters that want to kill you every 5 minutes. Of course you do, and of course that is a thing. But ultimately, what would I rather be doing? I'd rather give it a go. I like to be in the challenger. I've always had that way about me. I like being the underdog. I like proving myself right. I like proving people wrong. I like being against the odds. I've been against the odds my whole life, and I'll continue to do it. And I'm loving it because I love the sport. I love what I do. And if you'd have said to me 15 years ago that Frank Warren was going to be pushing me on stage because I was standing in between my fighters, I'd have said, "Please, come on." I would love that, and so here we are. And when you take a zoom out, you got to be grateful. I'm a young man having a great time flying around the world and living the dream.